Good day, Africa. Welcome to AAU Talks on AAU TV. With me on this edition is Madam Nodumo Dlamini, who is the Head of Communication, ICT and Knowledge Management at AAU. We will be discussing data protection and its management, how it affects you and how it affects me. This has become a hot topic because of the regulation by the European General Data Protection Regulation, which came into effect on the 25th of May. And as such, you might have received a lot of emails which was asking whether you want to confirm that these institutions have your data. Today we'll be dissecting this issue, and we ask that you post your questions on Facebook. If you are joining us on Twitter, you can do so at AAU_67. We will be discussing this information to help us know what we must do as consumers, what institutions must also do, and how it affects us as Africans. We will be going on a commercial break, and after that, we jump right into the topic.
Anyone can get an education, but not everyone gets quality education. It's never too late to acquire it. The University of Lusaka, a modern private university located off Ali Kinkata Road in Lusaka, Zambia, offers undergraduate, master's and PhD degree programs in the School of Business and Management, Law, Economics, Banking and Financial Services, Public Administration, Governance and International Relations, Education, Engineering and the Built Environment, and Health Sciences. Our curriculum is practical and designed to meet the changing needs of employers, business and society. Because at Unilas, we make students think outside the book. Our driving force is a passion for quality education. We build graduates fit for purpose. Enroll now for January or June intakes. For more information, log on to www.unilas.ac.zm.
Welcome back to this edition of AAU Talks on AAU TV. And our topic for the day is data protection and its management. With me, Frank Asifua, is Madam Nodumo Dlamini. Welcome.
Thank you, Frank.
She is the Director of Knowledge Management, Communication and ICT at the AAU, and we'll be discussing this hot topic.
Thank you.
Thank you. Madam, this information or questions about data protection and its management came about because of this regulation called the GDPR,
Yes.
which is the European General Data Protection Regulation.
Yes.
What does this regulation really mean?
Okay, thank you, Frank. This regulation was passed by the European Union Parliament in 2016, and it became effective on the 25th of May 2018. So basically the regulation says every European citizen has a right to know how their personal data is used. They also have a right to decide how institutions are processing their data, how the institutions are storing their data, and how the institutions are actually protecting their data from loss. So it's a regulation that empowers the customer, the user, the person who normally has no say in the process to say, you have my personal data, I have a right even to tell you to delete the data that you hold about me.
Yes, and that's very good for data enthusiasts like myself.
Yeah.
And this whole issue was also being discussed when Facebook went into their issues with Cambridge Analytica,
Yes.
because they sold personal data of their users
Yes.
to Cambridge Analytica, and they were able to use it for other
Yes.
means.
Yes, and Frank, I think this regulation was really spearheaded faster because of institutions like Facebook, institutions like Google,
Yes.
institutions that hold huge amounts of data.
Yes.
And then they turn that data into revenue through advertising and other things.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as we always do, we always see a lot of emails or pop-ups whenever we are browsing, and these come into effect and keep us wondering, how come people have this information about us? How do they know that we like that shoe that we
Yeah.
saw last week?
Yeah.
There's a new color, and then it pops up and says, would you like to buy it? And that keeps on coming a lot for us.
Yes, because I think there are now systems that study our behavior
Very much.
as
Very
we
much so.
interact
Very much so.
on
Very much so.
internet. Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Now, Madam, what does this really mean for companies?
Frank, it means that companies, even though it's a European Union piece of legislation, it touches us in Africa.
Yes.
Because companies, we are living in a global world.
Yes, please.
So I think almost all institutions have someone who lives in Europe that they have on their mailing list. So immediately you have someone who is protected by that regulation on your database or mailing list. By default, this regulation affects you.
Yes. Yes.
So as a company, you must review your data management policies, your data management processes, and understand how compliant you are to the European General Data Protection Regulation.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Now that is very good, because many institutions sometimes feel that they are not affected. Many institutions in Africa feel that they are not affected.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you know, that's a huge risk.
That's a very huge risk.
Because we are living in a globalized world, and we don't want to respond only when we've been affected.
Exactly.
We need to be proactive and make sure that we are responding to the international regulations that are being put in place.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you see, sometimes on many websites, you'll be able to see a part of it which says subscribe now. So you are asked to enter your email so that you can receive updates and things like that. So as an institution, you might not think that someone from Europe would sign in for that.
It's true.
But
it's
actually they might have,
it's
and
true.
you might not even notice.
It's true. And you know, it looks like we are being tricked to be part of some mailing list that we don't know about.
That's true. That's true.
You know, through the example that you gave.
Yeah.
Sometimes you fill in an online application form and you think it will end there.
Yes.
But it goes beyond that. The institution then uses that information to do other things.
Exactly.
To send you advertisements
Other
and
updates,
offers.
yes, and announcements
Yeah.
that you might not have signed on when
No,
you came
no.
in the first place.
Yeah,
Yes.
maybe all you wanted was just one particular service.
Exactly.
Yes,
Exactly. Sometimes when you want documents, you want a book, you want something, they always want you to subscribe.
Yes.
And this is where it leads to. So
Yes.
sometimes you see your spam flooded with a lot of emails asking you to purchase something. This might be the reason.
Yes.
And you are always wondering, but it might be because of something you signed up for.
Certainly, certainly.
Okay, madam, now as we've talked about it from the perspective of the companies, what about we as the consumers? What does it mean for us?
For us as consumers, I think this is an empowering regulation.
Very much so.
Because it's always been very mysterious how people manage our data, how institutions actually use our data. So it empowers the user, for the user to be able to say, please explain how you store my data.
Exactly.
Please explain how you actually use my data. Please give me assurance that if my data is somehow
Tampered
abused,
with.
these are the steps that you will take,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
to further protect me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it is noteworthy that in that regulation, it gives companies up to 72 hours to report any data breach. Now, when it goes on a critical level, the company is supposed to inform each user that had their data in a way breached. They need to inform each of them.
Yes.
So it is very important because as it came out with some issues about a dating site in the US about a year ago, it spilled out a lot of secrets about people who were having affairs. But that was because they had signed up on the system and there was a data breach, and the company did not know themselves.
Yeah.
And that caused all these issues.
Yes.
So because of this new regulation, up to 72 hours, it needs to be reported. Then it needs to be, the users need to be notified so that they can do as much as possible to help themselves in whatever situation they might be in.
Yes.
It also gives us an opportunity to tell retailers to stop sending us ads. Because we do get these a lot. Where a company keeps on sending you information about this ad, but has no unsubscribe button at the bottom, or a place where you can simply opt out.
I'll tell you a story. I went to a shop in Accra here, a very reputable shop. So I purchased a few things. It was a clothing shop. Then as I was coming out, then I asked for my receipt. And then they said, we don't give paper receipts. We send receipts to your email.
Wow.
So please, can you fill in your email address here?
Wow.
But because I was alert, I said, no,
it's okay.
I don't want to fill in my email address. I prefer a paper receipt. And then they asked why. I said, no, because I know I will be receiving unsolicited emails from you.
Okay, thank you very much. That's a very nice experience, and that shows how much everybody is going digital with this. And I assure you, if you had done that, you would have gotten 2 offers by now.
And I think shops are desperate, to make money, so they will use any opportunity.
Any method to get it, And they've even gone to the extent of buying this data from other institutions where it's more reputable and you can get that information from. Okay, madam, so we all received the emails in our inboxes before the 25th or even on the 25th. What do we do about this bulk emails that we received? What should we do about them?
I think I'm also affected. What I personally did, I looked at all the institutions that I know I have subscribed to, and I reviewed their emails and their terms and their additions to their privacy regulations. So I actually took time to read the emails from these reputable institutions that I subscribed to. But what was also surprising is that there were other institutions that I didn't know I had subscribed to. So I also opened those emails and unsubscribed. And hopefully they will not add me again, because I realized I'm subscribed to so many institutions, some of which I don't know about. But also, that as AAU, we also had to send out a communication to our stakeholders. So I believe the stakeholders also did what I'm telling you.
Because we did get a lot of emails from institutions I've never even heard of in my life. And they had my data. They were not sending me ads though, but they had my data. So I was able to unsubscribe from a lot of them, and then you feel okay. And the good thing about it is you can even write back to them and ask them to delete all that data. That is very important, because if they unsubscribe you, they might still keep your data on their servers. But if you ask them to delete it, then it goes out, because there's a regulation that guides how the data should be gone. And it is completely wiped from their servers, unlike before.
And also, I understand you can ask for your data. So that they actually send it to you, either in PDF or whatever. And I hear they should do this in 30 days. If you as a user ask.
So it's very important. It's something we should all try and do. Ask for your profile on Facebook. Ask for your profile on your social networks on these companies. Let's see what they really think about you and who you are, and you'll be able to review it and remove some information that you think might not bode well for you. Okay, madam. So the next thing we'll be discussing is how this affects universities in Africa. Because we serve universities in Africa, how should they be affected by this new regulation, and what should they do?
For universities in Africa, what we would suggest is the Association of African Universities is that universities should have their data policies. Universities must have a data privacy policy, and these policies must be displayed on the university websites. I think that's the first most important thing.
Okay.
It's very important for alumni, for people who apply to a university, for students, for other stakeholders to understand how the university actually manages their information. But that's just the first. Yeah.
Now, what does it also mean for their systems? Because universities do a lot of systems on applications, student applications. What does it mean for these computer systems that have been built? What must they do about them as well?
Okay, it also means that there must be like an enterprise resource system. Data must not be sitting all over the place. There must be a specific system which manages maybe the student records. And this system must be secured from possible hacking.
Okay.
So the security aspect is very important, so that universities are able to tell the people whose data they hold that your data is stored here, it's encrypted or whatever, and this is how we use it. So when an auditor comes in to actually audit how an institution manages its data, the auditor must be able to go and see the data in a particular place. Yeah.
That is good. That is very good. So it means that we must all rethink our systems and see how we work on these problems.
Yes. Certainly we must. Yeah, we must.
Okay, now we talked about the effects of going against this GDPR. Now, from what I read, you are to be fined 4 million euros or 4% of your annual global revenue if you fail in any of these regulations and you had an European, someone in Europe in your database. Why should this be important and significant to us in Africa as well?
It's significant because we have limited financial resources. For example, institutions in Africa are not rich, so we can't afford to be paying fines for something that we could have easily avoided. So I think it's also significant, not just because of the money, but also the reputational damage associated with it.
Because more often than not, after the situation, your reputation suffers a lot. And more often than not, the company is unable to come back from such a situation because nobody feels they are trustworthy enough again, even though hackers are all over the place. So, Madam, what as AAU are we going to do to help better inform our universities and companies in Africa on what they should do about GDPR?
Of course, this is the beginning in terms of alerting our vice chancellors and our member universities to look very closely into the European Union General Data Protection Regulation. This regulation is not just for Europe, but it also affects us. So they must appoint auditors to actually take stock of how their data management and data privacy processes are managed. So as AAU, we will be at hand to run capacity building workshops, to run webinars. We will also share a blog post about what this European General Data Protection Regulation means for universities and how they should go about making sure they are compliant.
So thank you very much, Madam, for your wonderful insight on this issue. We've been able to understand how data protection and management affects each and every one of us, regardless of our location, our geographic location. Now, as you mentioned, we would be following up on this to help guide our members and also other people who want to know about this GDPR on what they should do.
Yes.
So I am very thankful for having you as a guest for this program, and I hope to see you again soon on this program.
Thank you very much, Frank. Yes.
So viewers, we come to the end of this edition of the AAU Talks. I have been your host, Frank Asifua, and my wonderful guest, Ms. Nodumo Dlamini. We have been talking about data protection and management. We ask that you share your information, your questions on the Facebook page. We would get back to you with answers to them, and we will review them. Thank you very much, and have a nice day, Africa.